All right, so you're here because you need answers. You want to know why bringing AI into your business, all those solutions and apps and AI-powered projects, it often feels, well, let's be honest, kind of like navigating a minefield.
Right.
Everyone's going on about the amazing potential, but actually making AI work. Yeah, that's a different story. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Think of this as your express lane to understanding the major roadblocks that can trip up even the most well-thought-out AI projects.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been digging deep ourselves into a bunch of expert opinions, reports from leaders who are actually wrestling with these issues, and of course, all the latest research.
The goal here is to give you a clear understanding. No nonsense. What are the real-world challenges companies face when they're trying to implement AI? And more importantly, how to avoid those pitfalls.
Exactly.
So think of it this way. Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
And you kind of already have by tuning in.
Yeah. Exactly. You're already here. Your mission is to walk away with a rock-solid understanding of the big obstacles, the things that can derail your AI projects before they even get off the ground.
Right.
Okay, let's jump right in, and let's start with something really fundamental, data readiness.
It's interesting, right? We always hear about these amazing AI models, the algorithms, all this fancy tech. But for a lot of companies, the biggest hurdle isn't actually building those models.
It's not.
It's about whether or not their data, the basic building blocks, are usable. It's about data readiness. And we actually saw a global survey over 1,300 tech and data execs. And it showed that only 18% of them believe their companies are ready to deploy AI, like truly ready, meaning their data is actually accessible and all in one place.
18%. Wow, that's a pretty low number. So it's not just about having a ton of data.
Yep.
It's about whether that data can actually fuel your AI efforts.
Exactly. It's got to be usable.
Okay, listeners, I want you to think about your own data landscape for a sec.
Yeah. Does that 18% ring true for you?
Does it feel right?
Yeah. I mean, the tricky part is, in a lot of companies, data lives in these silos. Different departments, different systems, and they don't always talk to each other.
Right.
So for data engineers, just finding all that data and bringing it together, it's a huge task.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's another crucial step. Data tagging and classification. It's not just some technical detail. It's about managing, who can see what data.
Right.
Which is super important for privacy and security.
Right, of course. Privacy.
Absolutely.
Can you give us an example, just a quick one, to illustrate why tagging and classification are so important, like in a real-world scenario with AI?
Sure, yeah. Imagine you're setting up a chatbot for your company. Okay, so you have one chatbot focused on HR stuff, maybe answering questions about benefits. That bot needs access to employee records.
Makes sense.
But then you have another chatbot. This one's customer-facing. That bot absolutely should not be able to see sensitive HR data.
Right, that would be a disaster.
Exactly. So those tags and classifications are like labels. They make sure the right AI has access to the right data and nothing more. It's about creating boundaries.
Okay, I'm getting it. So the big takeaway for everyone listening,
Yeah.
before any of that AI magic can happen, you've got to put in the work. Understand and organize the data you already have.
Organize it.
If your foundation isn't solid, if your data is all over the place, not tagged, you can't even access it,
Yeah.
then your AI ambitions, they're probably going to hit a wall right away.
Right from the get-go. And there's another layer to this, too. It's not just about the data you're actively managing. Think about what's called dark data.
Dark data.
It's all that unstructured information. Old emails, shared documents, archived files, things like that. It often goes unmonitored. Sometimes companies don't even know it exists.
Wow.
And when you bring in AI, which can analyze all this previously untouched data, well, suddenly you might be exposing vulnerabilities, sensitive data, things you didn't even know you had out there.
It's like opening Pandora's box.
It can be, yeah.
So before you even start thinking about fancy algorithms and AI tools, the first step is knowing your data.
Yeah.
Where it is, who has access, all of it.
Get a handle on it.
That sounds like a massive undertaking for a lot of companies.
It often is. And experts actually recommend taking these proactive steps before you even start looking at AI implementation.
Okay, so what kind of steps?
Well, there's diligently logging where your data is stored, right? And then there are vendor tools that can help you structure that data, make it searchable. And of course, setting up processes to vet the data, make sure it's accurate. And then, of course, there's data governance. Can't forget about that.
Data governance. That sounds, I don't know, kind of abstract. What does that actually mean for someone trying to implement AI?
Think of data governance like the rule book for your company's information. It's all about the policies, the processes, the standards for managing, securing, and using your data. And AI actually adds a whole other level of complexity compared to your traditional business intelligence.
So.
Well, with AI, you're constantly bringing in new data sources, internal, external, all kinds. So you need a more adaptable and robust governance framework than before. Interestingly enough, there was this MIT research study, and it found that data governance, trust in data security, all that, it's generally more mature in highly regulated industries, like
Hmm.
government,
Oh,
finance.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So what that suggests is that other industries probably need to seriously step up their game if they want to support AI effectively.
So it's almost like you need a data fitness score,
Yeah.
before you even think about an AI readiness score.
Exactly. And some companies are actually doing that now. They're trying to quantify their progress in getting their data, AI ready.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we're also seeing a trend toward these data steward roles. So employees who really know specific business areas, they become responsible for the quality and the management of the data that's relevant to them.
Okay, so involving the people who really understand the data in the process, that makes sense. But it also brings up a pretty important ethical question, something to really think about.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge. Before you go all in on data readiness for AI, you have to stop and ask yourself, is there any data that we should not be exposing to AI systems? Period. You have to address that right at the beginning of your AI journey.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about data readiness, the foundation.
Mhm.
What's the next big hurdle companies often face when they're trying to implement AI?
So the next big challenge is building the infrastructure, the data infrastructure.
Hmm.
That's actually strong enough to support your AI goals. And we can call this the infrastructure gap.
Okay, the infrastructure gap.
Yeah. EY did a survey, and it showed that a whopping 83% of senior business leaders, they think their AI adoption would be way faster if they had better data infrastructure. And then almost two-thirds of those leaders admitted that, yeah, their lack of good infrastructure is holding them back.
Wow, 83%. That's a huge number. So just having the data isn't enough. You need the systems, right, the pipes and plumbing, to manage it all, process it, and then feed it to your AI models.
Got it. That's the infrastructure gap. And this is where robust data hygiene comes in.
Robust data hygiene. That sounds intense.
Well, it just means making sure your data is accurate, consistent across different sources, and reliable. Those are your non-negotiables for training AI models that actually work. If your data hygiene is bad, then you're essentially feeding garbage into your AI.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how fancy the AI is, you're going to get unreliable, maybe even misleading results.
So it's not just about how much data you have, it's about the quality, the integrity of that data. It's got to be good data.
Exactly. And what happens a lot is companies try to build this infrastructure in a piecemeal way, like a whack-a-mole situation. They're just tackling data issues as they come up in individual projects.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
And it might seem practical in the moment, but it often means you don't have a cohesive data strategy. And experts talk about this flywheel effect that comes from building a really solid data and knowledge foundation. You do that, and then every AI initiative after that becomes so much easier. It just flows.
That makes sense. You build a strong foundation, everything on top of it is simpler. So taking a reactive approach to building your infrastructure, it can actually create more problems down the line, more headaches.
For sure. And poor data quality, which often comes from weak infrastructure, will always undermine your AI models, even the most advanced ones. To fix this, you need to prioritize that robust data governance, those policies, the standards we talked about, and you got to break down data silos, integrate different data sources.
Break it all down, bring it all together.
Yeah. And that often means using these unified platforms, things like data lakehouses or using data fabric architecture.
Right.
So the goal is to move away from that scattered departmental view of data toward a more centralized, well-managed environment.
Okay, so from silos to central command.
Yes.
Got it.
Exactly. And a key part of this is investing in automation tools. Tools that can handle data cleaning, deduplication, validation. And this isn't a one-time thing. Maintaining good data quality, it's an ongoing commitment, but it's essential for AI implementation.
Right, so we've covered the data itself and the infrastructure, but what about the people, the actual humans involved in implementing AI? Where do they fit in? What kind of challenges come up there?
So now we get to the human element, the skills, the culture within the organization. Even with all these amazing AI advancements, you still need skilled people who can build, manage, and use AI responsibly. And one of the biggest challenges companies report is finding the right talent. Experts in machine learning, data engineering, AI ethics.
Right.
These are specialized skills,
Okay.
and they're in high demand. So, yeah, there's a talent shortage. Big time.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's trying to hire people with those AI skills right now.
Absolutely. But it's not just about technical skills. There's also this cultural resistance to AI adoption. People are worried about automation, losing their jobs,
Right.
and that resistance, yeah, it can really slow things down.
Right. Understandable fears.
It is. And the same EY research we talked about, they found something called AI fatigue, where basically about half of senior leaders are seeing less enthusiasm for AI integration.
AI fatigue, that's an interesting term. So maybe the initial excitement, the hype around AI, it's starting to fade a bit as companies face the reality of actually implementing it.
Right. And so, employees might trust AI in theory, but they're still worried about their jobs, about how fast everything's changing. And this is where upskilling your workforce comes in,
Yeah.
fostering what some call AI literacy.
AI literacy.
Yeah. And it's not just about the tech stuff, it's about the ethical considerations too. Using AI responsibly.
So the focus should be on helping your current employees work with AI.
Exactly. Not just replacing them with AI experts.
Yeah.
And communication is key. Being open and transparent about everything, addressing those fears, clearing up misconceptions, building trust. Some say the talent challenge isn't just about skills, it's about mindset. Creating a culture that embraces AI, that sees it as a tool to help people, not replace them. That's huge.
It sounds like change management is just as important as the technical side of implementing AI.
100%. Leaders need to understand that it's not just about installing new software. AI affects every part of the business. The people, the processes, the infrastructure, the tech. You got to think about it all.
Okay, so we've talked about data, infrastructure, the human element. What other big hurdles do companies face with AI?
Okay, so another big one is strategic misconceptions. Taking a short-sighted approach to AI, despite all the hype around generative AI, research shows that only about 5% of companies have actually achieved mature, scaled generative AI initiatives, and then 45% are actually delaying investing in it.
Wow, that's surprising. Especially with all the buzz around generative AI, why are they holding back?
Well, it seems like about half of executives are kind of, short-sighted when it comes to generative AI. They just see it as a productivity booster. And yeah, productivity gains are great, but if that's all you focus on, you're missing the bigger picture.
Right.
Experts warn against just chasing those quick AI wins, the low-hanging fruit, because it can lead to what they call technology and process debt, and that can get really messy and expensive down the line.
So those quick AI wins might actually create bigger problems in the long run.
Exactly. To really unlock the power of AI, you can't just focus on those short-term goals. You need a long-term strategic plan. And that plan has to be aligned with your overall business objectives, not just productivity. AI as a transformative technology can change everything. So you need to be willing to reevaluate everything, your processes, your data strategy, your tech platforms, even your people strategies.
It's a complete overhaul.
It can be, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And experts recommend really simplifying, even completely redesigning your processes with an AI-first mindset. You need good change management and strong governance to make sure everyone's on board with this transformation.
Okay, so everyone has to be bought in from the top down.
Absolutely. And strong leadership is crucial. You need executives to champion AI, to secure the resources, the budget, the talent. Without that buy-in from the top, AI projects often stall. They lose momentum. Sometimes they get watered down. And some companies are creating dedicated AI teams, often led by a chief AI officer.
Okay, to keep AI top of mind.
Exactly, to make sure it's integrated across the whole company. Implementing AI, it often requires big investments in technology, in talent, in infrastructure, and you need strong leaders to prioritize those investments.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Data, infrastructure, people, strategic thinking. But there's one thing we haven't talked about yet. The elephant in the room. Security. What are the big security concerns around AI? What keeps people up at night?
That's a great point. And a lot of people immediately think about hallucinations, where the AI generates stuff that's inaccurate or just doesn't make sense.
Right, AI going rogue.
Yeah. But actually, the number one security concern for most companies is data leaks.
Data leaks. That makes sense. With all this powerful AI tech handling potentially sensitive information, yeah, that's a big risk.
Huge risk. And the research backs it up. Something like 80% of companies say data privacy and security are their biggest challenges with implementing generative AI. And almost half of them have already had accidental data exposure. There was that Microsoft AI data leak last year.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was a big deal. And it shows just how damaging these breaches can be. So it's not just about AI amplifying the benefits of data, it's also amplifying the risks if that data is mishandled.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is, and AI can make those existing data management challenges even worse, especially with all that unstructured dark data we talked about. So you have to understand your data permissions, your security protocols, all of that before you even touch AI.
Right. Security first.
Absolutely. And you need strong policies to prevent leaks. And then you need a plan for what happens if a leak does occur. How do you manage that information? And that includes training your people, making sure everyone understands data handling responsibilities and how to use the approved AI tools correctly. Experts recommend focusing on your high-risk information first, and then implementing data labeling, classification, tagging, all of that to control access and how the data is used.
So it's a better safe than sorry approach.
100%. And it's okay to take it slow. Don't rush into AI. Start with those security policies, run some small pilot programs, test the waters before you dive in. And then having a centralized AI strategy, that's key. You can vet new tools, manage data connections, all of that. A phased rollout can also help you find any security weaknesses before you go all in.
Okay, so test, test, test.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is this push for AI adoption, it can actually force companies to improve their overall data security, which, let's be honest, a lot of them should have been doing all along.
So AI's forcing companies to up their game.
Interesting.
Yeah. And here's another important thing. Even after you've deployed your AI solutions, the work isn't over,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it comes to data readiness and quality. It's an ongoing process.
That makes sense. Your data is always changing, so your AI models need to adapt too.
Right. And experts recommend setting up a continuous feedback loop, something like an AI hotline where people using the AI can report issues directly to the tech team. Like if the AI is hallucinating or the data is tagged wrong.
So the end users are part of the quality control process.
Exactly. Their feedback is super valuable. The tech team can then review everything, reevaluate the data, the model, even retrain the AI if they have to. It's an ongoing cycle of feedback and refinement. And then continuous testing of the models themselves, that's important too. To catch any weird behavior or drops in performance, make sure everything's up to par.
It's a constant cycle of deployment, feedback, analysis, and improvement. Never stops.
Okay, so let's recap. We covered a lot of ground today. The big challenges companies face when they try to implement AI.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
We talked about data readiness,
Getting your data organized and accessible.
the infrastructure gap,
Building the systems that can handle AI.
the human element,
Finding the right talent. Managing the cultural shifts.
strategic misconceptions,
Not just focusing on quick wins, having a long-term plan.
and of course, data security, preventing those costly data leaks.
Huge one.
If there's one thing to remember, it's this. You got to address these foundational elements. If you want your AI initiatives to succeed, you got to get the basics right.
Absolutely. It's not just a nice to have, it's a must have.
Okay, listeners, here's a final thought for you to chew on. All these challenges, they're all connected.
Yeah, they all feed into each other.
So if you could make one big change, a shift in mindset or strategy, what would have the biggest positive impact on your company's AI journey? What would move the needle? Think about that.
It's worth considering.
Well, I hope this deep dive has given you a good starting point. There's always more to learn, so keep digging into these topics.
Exactly. Keep exploring.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.